Standing in the judgment hall of Caesarea, you would have felt the full weight of the Roman world. This was a city built on cold stone and absolute authority, a coastal stronghold where the empire's power was visible in every archway. The room is a study in extreme contrast. On one side sit King Agrippa, his sister Bernice, and Governor Festus, a trio representing the peak of political, religious, and military leverage. On the other stands Paul, a prisoner whose only possessions are the chains on his wrists. Paul has no wealth to influence the court, no political heavyweights to lobby for his release, and no legal technicality that can override the charges against him. By every worldly metric, he is powerless. Yet in this moment of total vulnerability, he ignores the typical courtroom strategies. He doesn't beg for mercy or argue the fine print of Roman law. He simply begins to recount his life. Political power can rewrite laws, and judges can overturn verdicts, but a lived experience exists in a different category of evidence. It is a reality that cannot be argued away or legislated out of existence. Paul builds his case by first anchoring his story in a past his accusers would recognize. He begins by establishing his credibility through total honesty about who he used to be. He was a strict Pharisee, a man so dedicated to his traditions that he became a violent persecutor. He didn't just disagree with the followers of Jesus. He was obsessed with their destruction, pursuing them even into foreign cities. This admission makes his later actions impossible to explain through human reason. A shift this radical required a collision with something far more powerful than his own convictions. He then shifts the focus from his internal zeal to the physical facts of a specific afternoon on the road to Damascus. He describes a physical event that happened at midday. A light more intense than the desert sun broke from the sky and slammed him to the ground, causing everyone to collapse in the dirt. In that state of total helplessness, he heard a voice that made the conflict personal. Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? By detailing the physical evidence, the light, the time of day, and the shared experience of his companions, Paul shows that his change was an external intervention, not a psychological trick of the mind. The story then moves to the mandate Paul received in the dust. He was given a clear mission to turn people from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to God. He argues that this new work is the literal fulfillment of the ancient Jewish hope. He frames his mission not as a break from the past, but as the very thing Moses and the prophets said would happen. At this point, the tension in the room snaps. Governor Festus interrupts with a shout, dismissing Paul's focus on the scriptures as the rambling of a man who has lost his mind. Paul refuses to retreat. He bypasses the governor's skepticism and addresses King Agrippa directly, putting a man who knows the prophets on the spot. What began as a defense has now become a confrontation. Paul's story forces the listener to move from being a judge of the prisoner to being the judge of the truth itself. When the rulers finally step away to confer in private, they reach a single conclusion. Paul is innocent. Under Roman law, he has done nothing to deserve death or even these chains. But here is the paradox. Because Paul had already appealed to the emperor, the legal process cannot be stopped. He remains a prisoner destined to be sent to Rome in custody. While this looks like a failure of justice, it is actually a display of providential sovereignty. The idea that God directs human systems to achieve his specific goals. Rome is now providing the guards, the ships, and the passage to ensure Paul reaches the heart of the empire safely. The chains that were meant to silence him are the very things carrying the message forward. The events in Caesarea provide a blueprint for every believer today. The same spiritual authority Paul used in that courtroom is available to anyone who has met Christ. Your own story of transformation is your primary tool for reaching others. It doesn't rely on your skill as a debater, but on the undeniable reality of what God has done in you. People can argue against a philosophy or a set of doctrines, but they cannot find a logical defense against a life that has been visibly changed.